So yeah, I play it now, and I build them as well, and I also have a student that is learning how to play and to build it and to teach as well. So to pass it on really. So I want her to, she couldn't make it tonight. She was coming tonight, so I wanted her to play, like play the intro, the opening, but she couldn't make it tonight. But next time there'll be many more.
Can I ask the question? The decorations has anything to impact the sound, or that's just from before?
No, good question. The design, because I have two models. The older model have a different design, but these are to tighten, to pull, like it pulls together. So by going under, over, it pulls the drum tight. So it like pulls it in like this, and that way the skin it tightens.
Yeah.
But I have a new model in my head that, because what happened is I can't tighten it as much because the can, because this is an old diesel can. Normally they were made out of whatever we could find. The real original ones are made out of wood.
Okay.
Yeah, but the can is too thin, so I can't pull this as tight. So the new drum that I have, is a thicker skin, so that I could pull it tight to get a better sound.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah.
What about your new drum?
How long does it take to make?
It don't take very long. How long did it take to make?
Well, it's because if you don't have all the pieces
Yeah.
ready, you have to go to a welder, you gotta get the ribbon
Right.
thing
Yeah, that's the
made
only
and-
part. Yeah.
But once you have all the parts, you can probably do it in a day
In a day. Yeah.
or two.
This is like the stringing of it is it takes the longest. And the style of stringing, it's an African style that normally it's on the djembe drum. But it actually works for all drums because it's a way to tighten the drum,
I think that one is because not that one. That wasn't the first one. The yellow one is the
Yeah,
first
the yellow
one.
one is the first
So
one.
when he was doing that, it was sort of this doesn't work this way. So it was a lot of experimentation. But once you have all the parts sorted out and everything fits, it's pretty quick.
That'd be very interesting for art classes in Caymans and
Yeah.
stuff. That'd be real good.
Well, actually, I think he's gonna do. Well, he has an apprentice who is learning to play the drum, and she'll learn everything from making it, stringing it, playing it.
Very good
that
class.
type of thing. So that is Chris Christian's niece, Bethia's daughter.
Oh
Grace.
yes. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
she was gonna be here tonight, but she's not here.
Okay.
You want to show the new drum? Huh? No.
No, not really.
Okay.
I'll show the log drum that's made out of the mahogany from here.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you should do that.
And then we'll get started.
Okay,
Okay. That'll give you another 5 minutes.
Great,
to get
love it.
some done.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you need that light off too, right?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I think it's fine
Okay.
now. Really, it was that one that would like cast.
Yeah.
Those are pretty pointed, so I think that those are fine
Okay.
if people need to find their way different places.
Emily, did you make this here, or this is what you brought with you?
So this box I brought with me. Actually, my dad made it like 4 years ago.
Okay.
And it all comes apart and fits into a suitcase. So
Wow.
yeah. So I deconstructed it, put it in the suitcase, brought it here, and then reconstructed it.
So then she's leaving it with me.
Okay.
Then
Yep.
I build my cranky, and then I take it to New York in February. I perform at the festival,
Wow.
and then in the meantime I'm gonna get one made off of it so that I have
good
one
idea.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. And we'll get all into the history and the construction and stuff in a
Yeah.
bit.
You need an assistant.
When's the festival?
Where?
When?
When like
It's the last weekend.
last
that's like
weekend
the
of
February to
February
March. So it's
into March
the 28th to the 2nd.
yeah.
So you got time to build a box? Because I'm like, February's right there.
Oh yeah, but the building the box is not gonna be the hard part because I can use hers.
Yeah.
But building that cranky, it's like how many feet is this one?
I believe that the scroll is around 50 feet.
So I have to illustrate.
The whole
The
story.
whole
My whole
story.
story.
That's the bulk of the work.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I have apprentices.
Nearby too, you know.
Yeah. I have my aunties, all my retired aunties, all sitting down, cutting out things. So, all right, go ahead. Ron.
Yeah. All right, so this is made out of a Cayman mahogany tree, and this drum actually has a story. So I was looking for logs to make drums for an art project, and then I went to my friend's house who lived down the road. He had this log in the yard. So he said, hey, yeah, I could give this log, mahogany and everything. So he gave me this log. We made the drum, me and our other friend Brad. We made it, designed it, and
So by burning it out and digging it out.
yeah, by digging it out, 'cause it's
through the
hollow.
slits.
Yeah.
So all the inside there is hollow.
So we did all that by hand and with fire.
But how did you do that? Just kind of
Yeah, like
chisel it out?
Carving it.
Now, how long did that take?
it took a little while, but
A
Brad,
long time,
my
and
other
I had
friend.
to feed the two of them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so after now I made the drum, and the drum completed, we playing it. My friend came over, and when he seen it, he just reacted like just overjoyfully. Like I'm like, so what's going on? How are you so happy to? And he said, this was a tree in town that people used to sit down under and just talk and like just hang out really. And it's like the government didn't really want that in town, so they cut down the tree.
Oh.
So this is a part of the tree that the government cut down because they didn't want no one hanging out underneath this tree, so they cut down the whole tree. So when he see this, it was like, oh wow,
It's got you like.
yeah, exactly,
No, it still got people hanging around.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
So
very cool.
This is how it sounds. So this is the log drum,
Okay,
made
great.
out of Cayman mahogany, and it has a story.
Yes, I love that.
All right.
Woohoo!
I think you can get started now.
Okay. While I start talking, will somebody go back and turn that one off?
So Rhonda, turn it off. How to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
back
I
on?
just,
Yeah, that's okay. That's force of habit. Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Emily Schubert. I'm an artist from the United States. I am. First, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to be as loud as I can possibly be because there's lots of environmental sounds going on, and
It's recording?
yep, we're good to go.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'm actually getting over a little bit of bronchitis. It's kind of funny because Nasaria and I were talking to each other, and we both like had the same sickness in two wildly different places, and now we're all here and getting over it, and we're doing our thing. So I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, but I have lived lots of places in the States. I now live in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. I got here on Wednesday. When I left, there were 2 feet of snow on the ground, so this is very different. I'm very happy for my little escape from winter. This contraption over here is called a cranky. And so first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the cranky and how it came to be, and its revival. It's going through a revival currently, which is kind of why I'm here. I want to take a minute to thank the Center for Cultural Vibrancy, which is a nonprofit organization in the U.S. that sponsors cross-cultural arts exchange programs, and so that made it they made it possible for me to come here. Like 3 weeks ago, I did not know this was happening. I got a call from one of them. They were like, hey, do you want to go to the Cayman Islands and make a story with a storyteller there, teach her how to make a cranky? And I was like, of course I do. And then the goal is that Nasaria will make her own cranky in this very cranky box, and then get to come to a cranky festival that will be in Flushing, Queens, New York City, at the tail end of February / early March. So we're very excited. Okay, the history of a cranky. It wasn't always called a cranky, so we're gonna go way, way, way back in time. This is one of the oldest forms of visual storytelling to exist. It's one of those things that kind of popped up in a bunch of different places at the same time. So we're talking before the written word, we're talking before books, we're talking way before radio and TV. People were drawing images, right? Images of the things around them to tell stories in a visual way, and they were doing it on scrolls. Oftentimes they would have multiple scrolls for one story, and they would do this thing where they'd lay it out on the ground, and they would kind of roll it out as they rolled it up, so that you could only see one scene at a time. This was happening, it kind of happened in China, India, and Indonesia all at the same time. And everyone fights over like who really invented it. But I think it's just one of those human things that had to come from us. And so, at some point in time, somebody got the bright idea, hey, we can take this thing off the ground, we can turn it upright, and we'll make this little contraption machine that is essentially just a wooden frame with 2 dowel rods that you crank to crank the scroll across, so that you kind of don't have to do all that hassle of rolling it out and up at the same time. So that's kind of where it left off. The beauty of this art form is that they come in every shape and size. There are crankies that are the size of a matchbox, and there are crankies that are the size of a movie theater screen. Over time, it found its way from those places where it originated to Europe and to the Western world. And people, the Victorian era came, and people decided they were gonna make it sound very fancy and call it scrolling panoramic art. And it became a way for people that went on trips to other places to bring back a little memento of where they came from. So like a moving postcard, right? So like they would have a little pocket-sized cranky that they could pull out and then show their friends and be like, oh look, I went here, I went here, I went here. And then over time they got a little bit bigger, and people started inviting their friends over to their parlor rooms, and they would have parlor room shows where they would drink cocktails and then have everyone sit down and sort of like listen to the tales of their trip. And then they got even bigger. In the United States, there is a cranky that is the size of a movie theater screen that takes, I think, 4 to 5 people on either side just to crank it, because it's that heavy. It's a completely painted canvas scroll at the New Bedford Whaling Museum in Massachusetts. I have never seen this cranky, but I hear they only crank it once a year for preservation purposes. But I find it very funny because it sounds like a very boring cranky. All it is just like the scenery that you would see from the boat while you went whaling. There's like one little moment where something exciting happens. So it's kind of funny, the things that people chose to like paint about or write about or whatever. Fast forward again, in, let's see, the 2010s, a couple of string musicians, old-time musicians from Appalachia started kind of reviving the art form, because it was a really great way to make a sort of simplistic music video to also like illustrate the stories of the songs they were singing. There are a lot of like old school murder ballads and story songs, and so they would illustrate the images, and someone would kind of crank it as they sang the song. This kept going, and now there is this very interesting thing happening in the US where there's like an association of crankies with Appalachian music and like old time music, and that's not its history. It's way older than that. It's just because of the revival, people now think that they go hand in hand. We eventually started calling them crankies because scrolling panoramic art is kind of a mouthful, and there is a puppeteer in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont where I live. His name is Peter Schumann. He started a place called the Bread and Puppet Theater, which is like, everyone knows Jim Henson's name, right? Jim Henson was like the Hollywood puppeteer. like the big screen kind of mainstream star. Peter Schumann was like the artsy underground quick cheap fast dirty puppet maker that got his start in spectacle protests of the Vietnam War in the US. He's a German immigrant that came over, started doing these giant pageants and spectacles in New York. Around that same time, a bunch of anti-protest laws went into place, and so they decided to move their home base from New York City to this like rural dairy farm in Vermont where his wife owned land. Excuse me. And that is where basically he has this crazy politically active puppet theater circus that adults can run away to for summers and learn about theater making and puppetry and performance. And he adopted this art form and he decided, hey, you crank it. Let's just call it a cranky. And the name kind of stuck. And so that's how we get crankies. There is a huge revival of the art form happening now. I kind of call it like the gateway drug to puppetry because it is a puppet adjacent art form. It's under the umbrella and it's really easy for visual artists that normally work two-dimensionally to sort of like move into a three-dimensional space. It also has like all of these performative elements to it where you can have front-lit crankies that are like full of color. You can have quilted crankies. You can have backlit crankies. You can have three-dimensional puppets in front. You can have shadow puppets in the back, which you'll see in a little bit. You can have puppets doing stuff on top. And we are like very open to thinking outside of the traditional cranky box when it comes to the art form. And I've seen people do a lot of different kinds of things. So it's very exciting to sort of bring like an ancient art form into the new age. I think that's really it. As far as construction goes, people make them all different ways. This one completely breaks down to fit in a suitcase. Some of them have the ability to be able to like take the dowels out so you can just keep your scroll on a dowel and then you can have a library of scrolls and so you have your whole library of stories. Also, cranky festivals have been popping up all over the country, starting with the Baltimore Cranky Festival, which was founded 11 years ago by a duo of Appalachian string artists. And then as they sort of left town, I kind of took over, and so this is my 7th year curating, organizing, and performing in that festival, which happens in early February. And now we have this one going on in New York. I know that there's a woman whose name is Sue Truman that lives in Seattle that has a fabulous website all about the history of crankies and scrolling panoramic art. She's like an actual scholar in the art form. And there's a Minneapolis Cranky Festival. There is a Winnipeg Cranky Festival in Canada. They just started one, I think, in Ithaca, New York. And every year they're adding more. So, who knows? Cayman Cranky Festival? Possibility in the future.
Only if you say it right.
How do I? Okay, I'm trying Cayman. Better? Okay.
We've been working on it all day.
I know. I'm trying. Okay.
You ready to cut off the light? Oh,
I think so. Well, I'll just say that this is not the traditional cranky box that I use. My cranky box is different dimensions, which is why it has like a nice little red curtain up here. Nasaria's scroll will be the whole height of this box, but I've sort of retrofitted it to fit my scroll for this event. I guess I will say that I tend to make cut paper crankies because I find the process of cutting paper very zen, but people definitely call me crazy, and you'll probably see why. For the scroll, we use a material called Tyvek, which you might recognize is something that like people traditionally use as a moisture barrier to wrap houses with. It's like a construction material, and we use it because it has this really beautiful quality that's sort of like rice paper when you light it from behind, and it's really durable because it's plastic based. If you have any tension issues, your scroll won't rip on you, which is really important. I guess this cranky is the first cranky I ever made. I made it way back in 2015 in January, and I had a dream, and I woke up And I had one friend that was making crankies at the time, and she kind of inspired me, or like I had the seed of like, oh, I want to do that one day. And then I had this dream, and I woke up, and I was like, I know what I'm making a cranky about. I gotta make it right now. And so I decided I was gonna no longer be afraid of power tools, and I went into my dad's wood shop, and I made my first cranky box, and it took me about a month to cut out and complete this story that you will get to hear now.
Just make sure your phones are on silent so that you don't come out of school.
Okay, here we go. This story is called Heart Splinters. The heart of the world was once so full, it took up the entire Earth's core. And the world basked in love. It had the sun to guide it in all of its radiant brilliance, and the moon as its muse. The world would stay up all night, marveling in the blue shadows she would cast across its surface. The world had all that it was and all that it held. And there was music and dancing. It must have come from somewhere far away, or from somewhere deep within. But joy did abound, and every day was a celebration. But a heart that's so full that there is not much room to expand and grow is a fragile one. And so one day, it burst. And the music stopped. And the dancing ceased. Nobody expected the heart of the world to break, least of all the world. And as the pieces of the heart traveled, all things fell into a timeless sleep. And the heart shards scattered throughout the land. The biggest pieces fell into the ocean. And that is why sometimes, when near the sea, you can feel something pulling at you, calling to you deep inside. It is the pieces of the heart. Others landed on mountaintops, and that's why sometimes we feel the need to climb them. Others landed deep in valleys and canyons. Some landed in the most unexpected of nooks and crannies. Some pieces were so small and so thin, they were like splinters. And these splinters, being so tiny and traveling so fast, found their way into the eyes of people. There might, in fact, every person, it makes that way to a soft spot in the being's heart and sparks a small fire. It could be this that fuels us, our passions and our search for meaning passed down from these shards of the heart of the world as we grow. And it helps us to see the other pieces when we find them. Sometimes you can see the splinter fire in people glow. In the wee hours of the morning, when the air is just right, or a kind act between strangers, a glance between lovers, or sometimes it might stay bottled up until a person's final fantastic moments. But those times when we witness a beautiful sunset, or we stare out at the ocean because it comforts our soul, or we turn over a rock to reveal a beautifully wriggly worm, or we stare deep into our own eyes and ask ourselves who we really are, we are seeing the pieces of the heart of the world at work. And with each new discovery, some of that warmth and energy is sent back to the earth's core where a new heart is growing. And it reminds me of that time as a young girl when my mother gave me a beautiful piece of a seashell, and she told me that one day I would have all the pieces that I needed to make a whole. Maybe one day, the heart of the world will once again be whole. And it will not be so fragile. It'll be different, but the same. And it will beat to a new kind of rhythm. And it will love anew. Yeah, so there you have it.
That's awesome.
Cranky.
Love it.
Yeah. One more. I mean, I guess should I take questions? If people have questions? Anybody have any questions? It's okay if not. If anybody wants to like come up and actually see the contraption. Another interesting part of having a backlit cranky is from the back, you can't tell what's going on because you can't see the front. So after the fact, you have to give yourself little marks and lines to kind of be able to tell like,
Oh, right.
okay, this is where the puppet's gonna go, or this is like, these are the edges of the scene. We also talk a lot about like transitions and how you can kind of keep the story going in a direction because it's all linear, right? And I've seen all kinds of things. I once tried to make a cranky where it was a dance between people, so the people were the posts and we wrapped ourselves up and we did this like dance where we scrolled the cranky with our bodies. I've seen a friend of mine has like, she's way more like tech savvy than I am, and she uses a lot of projection, and so she made a very meta cranky where there's like a mini her that gets trapped in the cranky, and there's like a little projection of her, and then she's like using live ink painting behind and like trying to like catch the mini her with the ink, and she actually intentionally breaks through her scroll at the end.
Oh.
So people do all kinds of cool stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm very excited to see what Nasaria comes up with. Yes.
So did you do the artwork yourself? That's all your own paper
Yes,
cutting?
yes. So it's all paper cut with a number 11 X-Acto blade.
Wow.
Yep.
Especially the eye, that was so very defined in the eye.
Thank
and
you.
the sun, the face.
Thank you. Yeah. How long did it take? So at the time that I made it, I was fun employed, and so I had a lot of time on my hands, but it took me about a month to make the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, the scroll is I think this is the one I measured. I'm not sure because I have a couple, but that's a question people always ask me, and I never really have a good answer because you work on it in sections and you never really see it all rolled out. And so I think this one is like 50-ish feet. So that's a lot of scroll to fill. I would love one day to do an exhibition where a bunch of cranky artists get together and we actually like roll out the scrolls and they're displayed in full, because that would just be really cool to see it that way. I've never seen it, so yeah.
Luigi was asking if it's hand painted.
Correct. Yeah.
It's so there's no paint, it's all paper. So this paper is just like a fancy paper that I found at a craft store, and I'm always like doing things where we did it earlier this week where you check it and you hold it up to the light to see if like the light will shine through it perfectly, and I found this this perfect paper where I was like, ooh, that's the heart. Like I know that that's what I want. And so everything else is all hand cut paper. So I use like a spray adhesive to basically attach all of the black to the white. And I know basically how every spray adhesive on the market works at this point, and I know which ones dry fast, which ones give you a little bit more time to work with, and all of that. So you get to know a lot of the materials pretty well as you go. Yeah?
For example, for the heart, you drew the heart in, or that is all just cut?
All of the black is cut. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Does it fade?
Does it fade? This paper, I'm not sure. You know, I made this one back in 2015, so it's almost, it's 10 years old.
Yep.
It's 10 years old. Oh my gosh, wow. And this is like a paper, like the black paper is just some paper I got at a craft store. Now I have upgraded. They do make a black Tyvek that is this same material that is even more like opaque. You can also see, like here you can kind of see the print lines, but the thinner the like picture, like that's why the eye stands out so well, is because the the image is like pretty thin all around. So if we go back to the eye, this is another thing at Cranky festivals. I've definitely had moments where the Cranky artist gets up on stage, gets set up, and then realizes their scroll isn't rewound. And so then we all have to get up and do a little dance to block it so that no one can see the reverse version of the story, and then we go forward again. But yeah, it's all cut paper.
Do you come up with a story first and then?
It kind of depends. This one I had like most of the images. Like my dream was sort of a storyboard, so I had most of it. I didn't really know how it was going to end, so I started making it and I figured out the end as I went. A lot of times it happens like that. I tend to like have visuals first, and then I'll start writing, and then I'll start making, and then it kind of like all falls into place in different ways. But yeah, each one is different. At this point, I think I have about like 7 Cranky scrolls in my library. 7 to 8, yeah. And you can do different things. So like I have another Cranky that is like an altered Cranky in the way that I took a box and I flipped it this way and I put it over top of one of those old school overhead projectors, and I made a see-through Cranky. So it's like all on Mylar. There is a really cool technique that you can do where you use 2 overhead projectors that makes it feel really cinematic, so things can like fade in and fade out, and you can get like really ghostly shapes and all this stuff. You'll get to see it when you come to New York. So it's sort of like I don't know, still old school because I'm using old school overhead projectors, but you watch it like a movie instead of like seeing the whole Cranky, but you still see my assistant, who's normally my co-conspirator and partner in Puppets in Life. You can see everything that we're doing in front of it, so you get kind of 2 shows at once. Yeah. Any other questions? Who wants to make a Cranky? You can do it with anything. You can make it out of a shoebox with straight sticks. The most important thing to know is just you want to make sure that your dowels are completely perpendicular to that box. That's where people run into. If you have one that's like this and one that's like this, then your paper doesn't really want to do what it should do. But that's just, you got to make sure that you measure, and then after that, smooth sailing. You're a Cranky maker. Yeah.
Well, I'm up next.
Yeah. All
But
right.
thank you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So-
Yes.
But I'm gonna do a double story because, well, I thought it was being unique.
Well,
and then
I
you
mean,
told me everybody's doing a spooky story at this one.
well, it's unique. It's
But-
a unique for this festival. It doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
So-
But then also it's also bringing Caymans, like that
Yes.
is what our folk history is about mostly. So I think bringing that, probably, I don't know, some people have seen it.
Yeah. Come up. Start. Yeah. Get up here. I'll leave the backlight on so we
They
can
can
see
hear
you.
me. So I'm probably
But the video can't see you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
See?
There was a reason I was over there. But I don't. A lot of people, some people have seen this story before, but I'm going to do the one which was about a man in East End who was rumored to be raising the dead, and he would always be going up into the bush to cut the grounds. But he would cut it so fast that people began to talk, and he would. There was already rumors about him dealing in obeah and stuff like that, and so in the storyteller, because she's inquisitive, follows him up the cliff and hides behind a bush, and then is watching, and she hears when he starts chopping, and then she hears like one chop, two chops, single chops, and then all of a sudden she hears chop, 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 and when she looks out, there are 12 machetes up in the air with no hand attached. And that's when she knows that that is duppies that he reads. So she rolls down the hill and decides she's going to keep the story to herself. And then she says that she was walking and she see Georgia come in, and would you believe she buck her toe and that whole story fell out of her mouth, because that's how things go in Cayman. So for like, even for that image, that's one of the first images that's coming to me, would be this mouth that's open and all these letters spilling out of it, passing the story on, and then it spreads like wildfire. In the end, the man goes back up the cliff, but every time he went before, lost my peppermint, he took a ground basket full of rice, cooked white rice. And that one day he goes without it. And everybody's watching him because they're still talking about this, going up the cliff, but he doesn't come back down.
Oh.
And then the next morning they sent a search party looking for him, and they found him curled up in the fetal position on the ground, laced with marks from head to toe of the side of a machete. He had forgotten to carry the pay for the duppies, which was the white rice, and they took and beat him. So for the rest of his life, he never cut any more grass. That was it for him. But every single day, they watched him go up that cliff with that basket on his head full of cooked rice. Because once you make a contract with a duppy, it can't never be broken. And that's the story right there. So hopefully images will keep. Thank you. That wasn't a real storytelling, but telling you a story. But the images are starting to come as I think about it and as the idea comes. What I love about the Crankie, and I know it's not necessarily from that culture, but it feels very clean, like Japanese style storytelling, like anime almost. And so the image of the machetes is what's like in my head so much. And I think I'm gonna make them puppets, like she did with the pieces that broke. So we'll see what else comes. But mine's gonna be super colorful because that's me. So
you're gonna have to take what, 2 months to get this done?
I have 1 month. I mean, I have to get it done. I mean, I would want to get it done at least by the middle of February, so that I can then practice with it. Because what I don't do is learn my stories word for word. If I tell a story tonight and I tell it tomorrow night, the words are not going to be in the exact same order because I'm telling the story. But so I have to make sure that I can do my style of storytelling, and it'll work with it. I want practice, like, of course, scrolling it, because I was watching your hands, and it's not even like they're scrolling exactly the same place. One is a little bit ahead.
You could kind of, you can alter that or fix that also with like how you tape your scroll. So if you want them to be in alignment, you can make them more in alignment, but it's up to you.
You could have other people do it as well, right?
Yeah. At
I
every
think I'm
Cranky
gonna try to
festival, we have
scroll it.
multiple people that are on hand to be the cranker or to be an extra puppeteer or whatever. So.
And so Randy is coming along, hopefully. Sorry, and he's going to do sound for me. So he, instead of having music playing with mine, he's gonna have small instruments because we can only take small ones.
Yeah.
And making the sounds
Yeah.
like the rain stick and
Yes. Just a question for Emily.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do laser cutting on these?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that choose to use Cricut cutters and other stuff like that to assist them. I am just not. I think it
More
would take
authentic.
me more time to learn how to do that than to just cut it myself.
Yeah,
So
I think it's more authentic too
Yeah.
when you do the actual hand cutting. But
yeah. I want to use, because I work so much with there's a group called Needles and Friends, which my aunt started, which is a bunch of older ladies who get together and crochet, sew, thatch, embroider. They do all kinds of handcrafts. And we influence each other, so I'll be there and maybe influence them to take up some more contemporary work. And their techniques show up in my work. I've sewn through my canvases and stuff. So I'm thinking of using some cloth and some sort of quilting as I'm going through. Well, they call it slow stitching. But I need to just make sure that it works with the lights and that it creates enough of a effect to be worth doing. Because if it ends up just looking like stuck paper, then why do it, right? So I'll be experimenting with a couple to start with, and then I'm gonna storyboard it and then get to work. And I have full-time job now, so
yeah.
that's okay.
Will you be live in a performance when you get through with your
Sorry?
introduction? Will you come back and give us a performance? with
Yes,
yours?
I will perform. As a matter of fact, Randy's show, The Red Goat Experience, which is a completely improvisational musical show, like all the stuff just happens on stage. Dancers dance to the music, they make up the dance on the spot. Singers come and just ad-lib. I'm hoping that we're gonna have a section of Red Boat this time that is finished works that were inspired by something that started in Red Boat. So maybe a half an hour of that I can do the cranky, or I can do it at half in the break.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely will make sure that we do that here. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, like, I guess a note on sound and music for Crankies is like, you know, we always think that live music is better, but for traveling and different things, like, sometimes there are recordings, sometimes not. Like, I have found it difficult where sometimes what I'm doing with my hands puppetry wise is like too complicated for me to also remember the words, and so I'll record some of it and then do some of it like spoken out loud, depending.
Right.
Sometimes I also like make crazy costumes, and that like inhibits me from actually being able to like project for everybody.
So you use a recording.
So that depends.
Okay.
But for the festivals, music is usually like a really prominent element, and so like the way that the festivals kind of run is more like a cabaret show where there's probably like 6 to 8 different cranky artists, and so you get a vast variety of different kinds of stories, and then there's usually live music kind of like playing in between and covering the transitions, and so it kind of becomes sort of like, you know, a whole theater show rather than feeling like very disparate individual stories. It kind of becomes very connected, which is pretty cool.
Good to know. All right. One idea that I do have, I just have to figure out how I'm going to do it. Any holes in the, what is the thing called?
In the tie back. Yep.
Tie back.
Mm-hmm.
The light comes through and it will blind you, right?
Yeah,
The
depending on
audience.
how big the hole is.
Right.
It can also be a really magical effect if you make lots of really pinprick holes. You can get like a shimmery star effect where
Yeah.
like just enough light comes through.
So I want a mask to be in there so that I can put my face to it and have my eyes blink.
Oh.
So I have to figure that out, because it may be that
we can
I
talk.
have-
We can talk.
I have a piece of tissue paper or something here that I can slide out so that the light then doesn't blind the audience.
Well, we
and
can
then
talk
my
about
eyes are
we can
there.
talk about back pockets. I got a
Okay.
way for you to do that.
Yeah. So that was one of them. So they're coming as I see it more often. The ideas are coming, and I can't wait to be finished, because that'll be the best part, right? Ready to go. And then I'd like to introduce Priscilla. Priscilla is my apprentice. So there's a program that's being run. This is how I became involved with the Cranky, by John Lohman, who is out of Virginia, is it?
I think that's
Wait,
where.
wait.
I think that's where he's based. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he came down, saw me doing storytelling in town, and there's like the work that he does in the States is to preserve folk practices.
Mhm.
And so he saw us and he wanted to do the same thing here. So Priscilla is my apprentice. And we spoke about Randy's apprentice earlier, is Grace Christian, which is Chris Christian's niece. She's drumming, so she's going to learn everything about the drum. Priscilla's storytelling. And learning the key part, because she's always been storytelling, but creating her own style. And then also this year, I did workshops for all the tellers to write their own stories. And I think it was an amazing festival because all the stories were told by the people who wrote them themselves, right? So I don't know if you want to do yours or not. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you may not be ready to do like a full-on performance right now, but I just want them to hear that story because I think it's such a beautiful story. So do you want to close the night for us, Prissy?
Yay!
Yay. She hasn't done it in a while, and
That's okay.
she got told this 5 minutes ago. So.
Yeah.
It'll be amazing.
I can actually do like a little bit of a reading. More than
Yeah.
telling.
That's fine.
Let's trust the laptop. While it's starting up. So yeah, just to kind of
Wait. Can you put your chair up front?
oh yeah.
Are you okay with that? Okay.
And do you want more? You need light then.
No,
Backlight.
I should be able to.
Perfect.
So yeah, as Nasaria was saying, I've been doing storytelling for a while, several years. I did take a break after COVID. I had some kids, and I was traditionally telling her stories when I was doing these festivals, Give a Story here in Cayman, because I wanted to do Caymanian stories, right? I wanted to help in the preservation, but I was not really adding my own work. So through the apprenticeship, actually, I've written, I want to say 3 stories in the last couple of months. And this story happened very rapidly. So similar story, I kind of had something in my head. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, how the conflict would be resolved. But once we started discussing the concept for it, it came together in about a day and a half. And I also have a full-time job and several kids, as I just mentioned. So this story is called The Last Grass Piece. Lately, Mr. Albert wasn't doing so good. Ever since his wife, Miss Vivian, passed away, he was like a shut-in. He didn't go to church no more, didn't play guitar with his friends, and he stopped worrying about his grass piece. You see, Mr. Albert had been a farmer ever since he retired as a seaman. He started working on the ships when he was just 15 years old and moved his way up through various jobs, ending his sailing career on a high note as captain. He came home for Christmas one year and met Verena at a kitchen dance up East End, and as they say, the rest was history. They married shortly after and purchased many acres of farmland, which had always been Vivian's dream. They had one son, his name was Louis, and he was married now too with children of his own, living overseas in Big London. Well, it had been many years since Louis came home, so when he arrived in Cayman unannounced, Mr. Albert thought he was finally back to take over the farmless farming business. But Louis had no interest in running a farm or moving back to Cayman. In fact, he wasn't yet 5 minutes when he started listing off all the reasons why Mr. Albert should sell the land. Poor Mr. Albert took to his bed with all the hardship over selling his beloved grass piece. A few weeks passed and Louis was still in Cayman, trying to convince his daddy why he should sell. He already had a buyer lined up too, a big developer who had bought up and commercialized most of the surrounding lots. The offer was very generous, and Louis stood to gain a lot by getting the property sold. Plus, he was anxious to get back to his life in England. Well, one evening, a big old argument broke out between Louis and Albert. The developer offer was about to expire, but Mr. Albert stood firm. Louis begged his daughter to see reason. What was the value of the land if Mr. Albert could no longer work it or tend the animals? Albert told his son if the land was sold, it would be over his dead body. And Louis said, well, it would happen one way or another. He was going back to England, and he pleaded one last time for his daughter to sell the land and join the only remaining family he had in London. Well, if his wife passing had broke Mr. Albert's heart, fighting with his only son over the grass piece completely shattered what was left of it. That night, he couldn't sleep, and feeling the weight of his defeat, he wandered out into the grass piece. As he stepped out into the dark, the dewy grass tickled his toes, and he felt the stress escaping through the bottom of his feet. He felt the soft, fresh breezes on his face and heard the verdant trees swaying overhead. He had walked far from the house now, almost to the middle of the grass piece, and there Vivien's presence was so strong he could hear her saying, "It's okay, honey, rest. You don't gotta fight no more." So he lied down in the grass. Staring up at the stars reminded him of his days out at sea, and the moonbeam's soft caresses lulled him off to sleep. Louis arrived early the next morning at his daughter's house to say goodbye. He called out, but no answer came. He looked through the house and not a soul was in there. Then he noticed the back door wide open and he ran outside worried something happened to his daddy. Walking through the grass piece was filled with the nostalgia of growing up in Cayman. He reminisced about climbing trees, feeding cows and chickens, avoiding maiden plum, picking and eating his fill of fruit till the juice dripped off of his mouth and his hands, cloud watching and catching lizards. The slow-paced life his children had missed out on growing up in that concrete jungle. Louis was shocked when he found his daddy working the land just like he used to. Confused, he said, "Daddy, how you reach out? You're so far in the grass piece by yourself?" His father replied he had spent the night speaking with his wife on the Lord's back porch, and it provided him the clarity he needed. He didn't want to continue arguing, and he was not going to give his land away to be sold. The land had been bought for the family, and it needed to be handed down through the generations. Louis stood amazed, and tears formed in his eyes. He couldn't deny that walking through the grass piece had brought him much joy and tranquility. He finally had realized the value of the land. Their tender moment was abruptly interrupted by the sounds of construction, and they looked around, realizing all the development that had taken place over the past few weeks while they were bucking heads. Their grass piece was the last one. They started walking back to the house, and Louis took out his cell phone to call the developer. He told him the land was no longer for sale. News traveled fast about Mr. Albert's miraculous turnaround, and the next morning, 3 people showed up to ask if they could lie down the grass piece and enjoy its serenity to seek healing for what ailed them. The next day, more people arrived, and that continued throughout the week as more and more people hearing the stories of healing from the land came to seek the natural remedies of the last grass piece. The end.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much. We love that story. Gives me like chills because first of all, for Priscilla developing her own style, she's going to be a completely different storyteller than I am, than Ivana is, than Josepha is, and I really like it because it's a quiet, peaceful kind of storytelling, but you want to listen and take every word in. And that last line is just because this is what's happening right now. As a matter of fact, when she first read me that story, I had just passed this beautiful grass piece in West Bay that once belonged to Jennifer Dilbert, right? And their father, Miss Bazdeo's daddy, and it's now being developed, and that was that beautiful piece with all the cows on it. And it's so sad to see it, and we forget that we need the land to heal. Like you lie down on the ground, you can feel your blood pressure go right down. So I think it's a beautiful way of looking. It's almost like an old time story with a contemporary twist to it, and I think it's going to be great, and it could really make a good cranky or a good storybook for kids. So thank you, Priscilla, even though I sprung it on you. And thank you for the music. Thanks for all for coming out. Randy has been at me for ages saying this, oh, we could do stuff in the yard, and I'm more practical, so I'm like, where are people going to park? We can't, you know. But I think this is really cool. It's encouraging, and we should do more. We should do more. So we'll find reasons to do some. We'll do some more storytelling. We'll just call people and they can come out.
Yeah.
So be ready. All right.
Give me a little notice.
Huh?
Give me a little notice.
Yeah.
We
You
have
do
to go a
have to
long
get a
way.
flight. You do have to get a flight. Well, thank you all so much.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks for all the lights.
Emily, can I get a picture with you when
Oh, totally. Yes, I'm gonna pop.